So today, what we're going to do is find a much faster way than graphing, because graphing by hand, especially when you're not using technology, takes so long. We have to put it in graphable form. Then we have to figure out what best window to fit it in. Then we have to begin somewhere and graph, and then begin somewhere and graph. Estimate that, and we could be wrong. So when we estimate, we have to find the best place. And then, of course, once we find out what the x and y are, we have to actually do a check. So without technology, by hand, it requires a lot of work. And so, is there a faster way? Please take a moment and with your partner. So on our previous notes, we solved the following system. So this puppy down here, and this was actually from your notes. And notice here, you discovered that y equals 1 is a horizontal line. And we did it by graphing. So remember, solving a system means finding the value of both variables. But wait, we already have one. We already know what one of the variables is. So since we already know what y equals 1, that y equals 1, we can now substitute the value from the first into the second equation. So all we're doing is just take this right here and place it right there. Great. So can we rewrite that? Well, sure. This new, the second equation, I rewrite 3x plus 4 times the 1. Just substitute that in, and we know it's supposed to equal 16. So now we just take a few moments and solve that. I'm going to run out of space under, so I'll do the first step and then shift it over. So 3x plus 4 equals 16. I'm only doing the arrows because I ran out of room. Subtract 4 from both sides. 3x equals 12. Divide by 3, so x equals 4. So what's my solution? Well, we already know here that y is 1, and I just found out that x is 4. So bringing that together as a single thing, the x is 4, the y is 1. And I think that's correct. Now, of course, I can test it by putting the 4, 1 into both. Place a 4 here to get 12. A 1 there to get 4, so 12 plus 4 equals 16. Oh yes, it works there. How about putting the 4, 1 up here? Well, there's no 4 to put it into. There's no x, so I just put the 1 in. 1 equals 1. Good, that works. And of course, we can test it by graphing as well. Good, so today what we want to do is move away from the inaccuracies potential of graphing. So, we're going to solve by substitution. And it's named substitution because we're going to substitute more than once. So we're going to substitute, and in the end, we check our result. So it's called solving a system by substitution. The skill that you learned today is going to be used all over the place. In fact, this is probably the most used skill that I know of in all of algebra, is taking one thing and putting it somewhere else. And we're going to, whether it's an actual value like the number 2, or whether it's an entire expression, 2x plus 15, goes somewhere. Okay, so step number 1. We're going to solve for any variable. Just one variable, and it doesn't matter. So notice here I have choices. I can solve for this x on the top, this y, this x on the bottom, or this y. So I have options. Some are easier than others. So that's the first thing to consider. Next. Whatever I get from first step 1, I'm going to plug that into the other equation. And then I'm going to solve for the value, the variable that's left over. Now that will always, this one right here will give me an answer to one of the variables. For example, x equals 2, y equals 4. It'll tell me an actual number. So I'm going to substitute again. Whatever I got from, oops, please make a change here, a misprint. I have to substitute from the previous equation. And I'm going to plug that back into what I got in the very first step. Now, this sounds complicated, but fortunately for us, it's not going to be as complicated once you start getting into the habit. Okay, so first step. Solve for one of the variables on one of the equations. It never matters which, but I'll give you the hint. the hint. It's easiest where the coefficient equals 1. It's easiest to solve for the variable whose coefficient is 1. Why is that? Because then you don't have to divide. Notice here, if I were solving for this x here, I'd have to subtract the y and then divide by 2. If I were solving for this x, I'd have to subtract the y and then divide by a negative number. So what we want to do is choose one of the variables that's going to be fast. So I'm going to choose to solve for this one right here. It turns out solving for the y underneath is equally as fast. So all I have to do, negative x plus y equals 1. I add the x to both sides. And so here's what I get. Y equals, and that should say x above. Y equals x plus 1. So I just solve for one of the variables. It doesn't matter. Could take more than one step, but hopefully you're picking the one that's the fastest. Now what does step 2 say? Substitute the expression. That is what I just wrote down, that whole x plus 1. I'm going to substitute that into the other equation. So I'm going to erase the y and replace it with x plus 2. So now I'm going to bring the second equation, the 2x plus, but instead of writing y down, I'm going to say x plus 1. I made a little mistake. Let me fix that. X plus 1. And notice I'm still on the second equation. 2x plus my new y, x plus 1, equals negative 2. Notice what's nice. We only have one variable left. I mean, we see it twice, but we only have an x. There's no y anywhere. So I'm going to combine like terms. 2x, excuse me, let me undo that. It's a 3x now. 2x plus 1x is 3x plus 1 equals negative 2. Now I'm going to subtract the 1 to get this, and then divide by 3 to get x equals negative 1. All right, so what happens here? Step 3, substitute the value, this value that I just got. Now notice it's a value. In other words, it's a number. Oh, I got a negative 1. And where am I going to put that? It says put it back. Notice where I'm going to put it. Into this equation from step 1. You can put it anywhere up there. You can put it anywhere up there. But it's a little bit faster to just take this number right here and plug it here into the equation we got. Why? Well, because I already have this letter y by itself. So all I have to do is plug this in and simplify, and I'm done. So y equals x, which is negative 1, plus 1. Again, I'm substituting it in up here in my color. It's blue. And then y equals 0. Why? Because negative 1 plus 1 is 0. So in this case, I am claiming that my solution is negative 1, 0. That's what I'm claiming my solution is. So I just need to test it. So let's go ahead and check this. All I have to do is place, notice, when I put the negative 1 in, I have to put the negative, the opposite of negative 1. Plus my 0 equals 1. Remember, I'm going to put a question mark here. I don't know if it's exactly equal. The double negative becomes positive, and so 1 does equal 1. So far, so good. Now I just finish it up here. Add 0 to be negative 1, negative 2. It's a question mark. All of that simplifies, and we are done. We got it. All right, let's speed up the process a little bit. Do the same thing, but just go a little bit faster. Let's take a gander here. Please tell your neighbor which one of these letters, the U, the V, the U, or the V, which one are we probably going to solve for? So let's just do this. I'm going to solve this one, get it by itself. And I'm going to add v to both sides. So I get u equals v plus 8. Now, your calculator, if you check it, remember you're going to be using x and y in your calculator, but it doesn't matter what letter is when we're solving. Okay, so I added v to both sides. Now step number 2. So now I take the v plus 8 and I place it right into there. So I bring down the 7. I replace the v plus 8. And plus of v equals 0. Again, 7u plus v equals 0. 7u plus v equals 0. Distribute out. So 7v plus 56 plus v equals 0. I'm going to do two things at once. Combine like terms and subtract the 56. And lastly, I'm going to divide. All we do now is take this negative 7 and plug it right there into that equation. So now I bring down the u, and instead of a v, I put negative 7 plus 8. And so my u is positive 1. So I'm claiming, and we're going to go in alphabetical order here, so u comes first. 1, negative 7 is my answer.